Welcome to the Land Your Bet Sports Betting Show. Got 4 Playa Props I want to throw your guys' way here before we get into that live stream at 4:30 p.m. Eastern. Coming to you each and every weekday now with the live stream at 4:30 p.m. Eastern to make sure that you guys can get those, get to it, basically. So a bunch of people were saying that they can't quite get to it at 3 p.m. on the East Coast. So we're going to push it back an hour and a half, give everybody some time, do that for an hour, come into that live stream. Let me know what you guys think and what you might be wanting to know about. I'll run it through the process with you guys, show you how we're going to see if those bets are good for maybe some unders or overs, depending on how you guys are seeing things. I want to make sure that we're learning together. And I got some really great stuff yesterday from some people who brought some bets that I looked into, loved them, played them, and we hit them both actually with SGA and with Dante DiVincenzo. So happy to continue doing that with you guys. In this one, I'm going to throw you the 4 Playa Props that I put in this morning. I do want to quickly look, reminder of these. The 9-game slate has a bunch of back-to-backs on it in the NBA, so want to go through some of those with you real quick. Also, quick reminder to subscribe to the page so you can get these notifications as well, knowing that these videos are coming out night before. We had one with projections into 4 best bets. Now I've got 4 player props as well on top of these sides and totals that we played last night, so continue to follow along with that. Also got college hoops coming on every day now, or almost every day, with Oaks as we get into some serious college tournament action, the conference tournaments and the March Madness tournament as well. We're going to be covering that for you guys nice and in-depthly. And then we also have the UEFA Champions League, where Oaks is rocking it, has been making mucho units for us over the course of the last couple of weeks playing these Champion Leagues games. So I know I'm telling him, I would highly suggest doing so. Got to be subscribed to keep following along though, right? Like the video if you would as well, super helpful. But quick look at these back-to-backs. On the back end here, we've got Indy versus Chicago after a nice win at OKC. Memphis, a nice win, if you will, against Washington with all their backups. And now they're playing Charlotte at home. Sac had a real nice win against Milwaukee last night, who has become really bad on defense once again after a nice stretch of defense with Doc Rivers behind at the helm of that team. And then Chicago is going to be playing the Clippers tomorrow night after they play Indy on the road tonight. Dallas is playing Golden State tonight, and then OKC on the road tomorrow. We'll see which one of those they kind of look ahead to. I think it might be tonight, but we'll see if Golden State's able to cover that 7.5. And then Portland is going to be playing Atlanta in a not very fun game to watch until they play New York tomorrow night as well against the Knicks there. So interesting stuff on the back-to-backs. Keep an eye on whether or not Dallas is going to be, sort of sending it. And also I'm interested to see if Sac is able to bring it 2 nights in a row now at home versus the Lakers. But for my first best bet, I'm going to that Golden State and Dallas game, and I got to take an under for Klay Thompson. You can get 21.5 points under that if you want it. I believe MGM is still hanging a 21.5. Hopefully it's still there when you see this. If you want it, it's minus 130. I took the 20.5 under that for him to get under 21 points here. Minus 104, much better juice, basically even money on FanDuel there. And a couple of things here. Steph's not in, and so obviously you'd think, like according to last season, Klay averaged 6 more points per game with Steph out. This season, not quite as much the case, and this is not a good matchup for him versus Dallas, historically, especially. With Steph this season, the 25 minutes is a little bit skewed because he only played a few minutes in a couple of those, but the 15 points per game is not too skewed because he's averaging the same amount of 3-point attempts as when Steph is in there, and we know Klay needs to score off the 3. Specifically, the catch and shoot 3 is exactly how he's getting all of his shots at this point, right? We don't really trust Klay, to put it on the ground and get to the bucket. Really hasn't even been able to step in and find his mid-range game as well. So I don't like his chances here against Dallas, where he's played really, really poorly over his last 4 versus, and really historically against this team in general. He's got like 2 good games in his career versus Dallas. In his last 4 versus them, 7.8 points per game, 27% from the field, and 22% from deep, right? And that's been since his injury, where he came back from, back-to-back the knee, and then he also had a couple others, the ankle as well. So he's been out for a little bit here. And he was out, obviously, I should say. And since he came back, not the same player in his ability to put the ball on the floor and get anywhere to his spots without having it be catch and shoot, right? Dallas is locking up against the above the break threes, I should say, to the tune of really good numbers over their last 5. In that time frame, they are limiting teams to the 4th lowest field goal percentage from above the break threes, and they're getting a lot of shots taken from there against them. They have the 7th highest frequency in terms of how often their opponent is shooting from above the break. So plenty of sample size here to go, well, that really good field field goal percentage that they're limiting teams to probably means something with the amount of shots that they're taking. They are getting out there and contesting pretty well. Last game that Clay played versus this team, really poor outing, 3 points in 26 minutes, going 1 for 12 from the field. And he was guarded by Dante Exum, and he kind of shot them out of that game, to be honest. I don't know if that'll necessarily scare him from taking more field goal attempts this game, but Dante Exum should be on him again, and this one is available to play, should be getting good minutes and possibly starting even at times. But if he's on the second unit, either way, Clay at times has come off the bench. We've seen him start with Steph off at times as well, so it's not quite clear from Coach Kerr if Clay is going to be a starter in this one or not, but he should be looking at the about 30 minutes that he gets when Steph isn't on the floor. I don't like him to be able to score against this Dallas team, who not only are they really good against above the break threes, they're very good against spot up shooters, as we've seen. 5th best defensive efficiency versus spot up shots over the course of their last 5 games and really their last 10, where when they've had their wing players healthy as of late, they've been much better at guarding above the break stuff, especially threes, even though on the season they don't have the best 3-point defense numbers. So we're going to take Clay to get under, because even if he gets 4 threes in this game, I don't know how else he's going to get 8 more or 9 more points to get him to 21. He's going to need to go absolutely off from deep, which is possible from Clay. It just happens once in less than a blue moon at this point in his career. So a man who needs no introduction. Next pick, set number 2 here, we've got Nikola Jokic, over 24.5 points. Minus 115 on FanDuel there. I'm also going to take him for 30 plus and a little ladder for 0.3 units to get it at basically 2-1 on your money there. And this is a case of Joker playing on the road in a game that, look, you can say it's Eastern Conference and against the Heat, maybe they don't care as much, but in this rematch of the championships last year, I am liking an over more than an under, and it's at 215.5 right now. I got it pegged at around 219 for a total in that one, so I would expect there to be closer to 220 than the 215, and Jokic should be doing a lot of that scoring. You look at the difference between him at home and on the road. He takes a couple more shots, more than 2 more field goal attempts per game, more than 1 more 3 per game, and scores 2 more points per game on the road than he does when he's at home. It's been a case all season. A lot of people have been talking about it, I think more so this year than maybe ever, where you take Jokic points when he's on the road, you take his assists, a little bit more likely that he's getting other guys involved when he's at home. The Heat are not giving up assists. We know that. They don't give up assists to centers. They don't give up assists in general, really, because they don't they like to press up onto guys, force them to drive in and go from there. For Jokic, it's really a matter of where he's shooting is actually where the Heat are most vulnerable. He doesn't necessarily go all the way to the rim, but he does take most of his shots from right inside the paint, a little, like maybe let's say 5 to 10 feet away from the basket with that little baby hook, and he's doing all of his damage with his back to the basket, which is a place that you can find the Heat vulnerable as well, right? Like Bam is giving up so much size to Joker. That's what we saw in the finals last year when he decided that if you weren't going to double him, he was going to score, right? And that was what he did until the Heat really doubled him in the last 2 games of the series, which was too late basically at that point, right? And so now that we have him here on the road, where the Heat are actually worse on defense when they're at home as well. They play at a 116.8 defensive rating, giving up 113 points per game at home, and they're better on offense at home as well. They play a little bit slower and grinded out defense when they play on the road, but when they play at home, they're a little bit more faster paced and faster moving. And what's crazy is they score a ton more points as well without Tyler Hero, which is really interesting. I was looking at Scary Terry Rozier. I'll probably look at that one a little bit more closely with you on the live stream because I haven't bet it yet. And it is something I'm interested in, but it's just one of those things too, where it's like, if Denver decides to take Terry Rozier out of the game, I think they realize that he's definitely their maybe second, if not third best option on the team between Key, Bam, and Jimmy at this point, especially when Hero's not out there. And his presence in the lineup is a big reason that the Heat have not missed a beat on offense without Tyler Hero. So in a faster paced game where the Nuggets are going to need to score a bit more as well than they might have, some people might expect anyway, in terms of this game against a team like Miami, then I expect him to keep shooting into the fourth quarter and even from the jump to make sure that his team stays in this game and gets the amount of points that they're going to need. Next up, third bet here I got is Domantas Sabonis. Not a man I've had a ton of luck fading this season for those of you who have followed along, but I am going to fade him in the sense that I think he's going to get turnovers. Co-host on a different show that I have, Nate Weitzer, pointed this one out to me and looked a little bit more deeply into it, and I do agree with it a ton. I'd love him to get over 2.5 against this Lakers team tonight. We're talking about him getting 3+ turnovers in 5 of his last 7, actually 11 of his last 14 as well, because he's just basically the point guard at this point. I mean, De'Aaron Fox is obviously the guy playing in the point guard position, but when you talk about facilitator and main playmaker, playmaker for this team in terms of looking for others and just having the ball in his hands as much, if not more than anybody, aside from De'Aaron Fox, obviously, then this is the dude that with that many opportunities with the ball in his hand, going to look at a bit more on the turnover rate, right? Before the game against Milwaukee, where he had 0 turnovers last night, really nice game for him there. He had 21 turnovers in the last 4 before that, right? And that's with a 24% turnover rate. So he's turning the ball over a ton, in part because he just has it so much, but the rate of percentage of turnovers on his possessions is super high as well, right? As far as LA is concerned, they do force a decent amount of turnovers, but they're much better at home. And we've talked about that as well, where they are much better on defense at home. A big reason why at home, they're forcing 13.6 turnovers per game, good for top 10 in the league. And they are forcing the 11th most turnovers to centers on the season because of the fact that when you have AD in there, right, things are going to get a little bit tighter for the center on the other team. And if Domas is going to try to do that stuff against a center like AD, I don't think he's going to have quite as much success as when he has sort of the speed and quickness advantage against the defenders that he's playing against. Not going to be the case against AD, who can hang with him both in sort of mass and size as well as quickness. So we're going to like him to keep getting those turnovers, just mostly based on volume. And this is something he's been doing. He does try to take care of the ball. I mean, he's had a couple of no turnover games over the course of the last 20 or so. But for the most part, he's looking at 3+ turnovers consistently. So we'll take that at -110 for sure. And move on to the last bet here, where we're going with Cade Cunningham. And we faded him last time out, where we took him under 8.5 assists. That hit in a different game, though, than the one that he's going to be facing here. That was against Charlotte, obviously. And now we're talking about him versus Toronto. And Toronto has not been nearly as good at limiting assists to opposing point guards or in general. We don't even know if Emmanuel Quickley or Gary Trent are going to play in this one. We know everybody else is out for them in terms of we've got Chris Boucher out. We've got Jakob Poeltl out. We've got RJ Barrett out. We've got Scotty Barnes out. Stop me if you've heard of anybody else on this team at that point after you get past him. Now with Gary Trent and Emmanuel Quickley potentially not playing in this one, they're not going to have much in the way of defense. And the only thing that would worry me about this bet is the blowout. But either way, I do like Detroit to win this one -3, and I'd love Cade's 12.5 rebounds and assists. You get that -105 to the over for a full unit, nearly plus money there, or even money anyway. And then we are going to take him for +210 to get a double-double. And that number on DK has dropped. I believe you can still get +210 on Caesars, though. And that is where I would take it if you have a Caesars Sportsbook account, rather. For Toronto, just really bad in terms of limiting assists and trying to stop point guards and people of Cade's profile. Most assists per game, 2 point guards over their last 7, over their last 15, over their last 30. And that's really, the way that this team is constructed over the last 15 or so is how they are now, right? With the players that they have after the trades. They allow the most assists per game overall over their last 5 and remain in the bottom 5 over the course of their last basically 15 games as well. And as far as rebounds go, they're giving up a ton of those because they can't score nearly as much. I mean, they're playing at a really fast pace. So they are going to get a bunch more shots up, and an over would be more likely in this one, unless we don't have either Emmanuel and Gary Trent. Then I'm not quite as fond of an over. But either way, I like Detroit. But more importantly for the rebounds, there's going to be a lot of missed shots from Toronto if they don't have any of their normal guys in there. They might be playing fast with the young guns playing for them, but that doesn't mean that they're necessarily going to get some good shots. And Bruce Brown speeds this team up and is the reason they want to keep going in transition. So as long as Cade is as one of the guys back first in transition defense because of where he's playing on the floor, he should be round for some of those transition rebounds as well. As far as the assists go, you look at his assists against them last game, 22 potential assists against Toronto in their last matchup on December 30th, I believe, 12 assists in that game as well. And over the last 5, 14 potential assists per game, as we've seen him get in there with the majority of the guys that he's going to be playing with the rest of the season, with Jalen Duren in there a lot and playing good minutes now, as well as Oscar Thompson. I believe he's still questionable, but if he does play in this one, he's another great candidate to get those assists from Cade in the dunker spot. And Cade should have no problem getting to his spots all over the floor. The 23.5 points is a little high. That's why I like the rebounds, because they're a little bit lower, and the assists I really like. But the double-double puts you there, gives you 2 chances basically with the points and then rebounds or assists. And obviously much more likely that he gets the 10 assists. So that's why I took the +210. But it's the same number for him to get 10 plus assists as it is for him to get a double-double. So I like to throw the double-double in case he decides to do it with rebounds instead of assists, right? So that's another little ladder play for the second one of the day. And that is all the time I have for you. Let's run through real quick, because we like to look at how we did yesterday and talk about where we went wrong. The main play I want to talk about is that Houston at San Antonio play. As soon as Wemby was declared in, we should not have been on that over. And I played that early before Wemby was declared in. I tried to get ahead of him being out. That's why we took it at over, assuming he wouldn't be in that game. Once he comes in, everything slows down for San Antonio and they lose a bunch of points. As far as the Kyle Lowry bet, the mistake there was take the assists. We talked about how he dimes up more with Maxey on the floor, actually. He doesn't score as many points, but he still 7.5 wasn't really a scary number for the points. In hindsight, the assist would have hit, though, and we should have just stuck with that because that was the thing we felt most confident about. No reason to add in the points and assists. Dame, I feel good about him getting over 6.5 like I originally took, and even 7.5 if he had the need to play in a blowout game where he was obviously trying to force up some shots at times because it wasn't really working. Anything wasn't working for them on offense. Not really a regret there. I only put 0.3 units on it, as you can see, because I was trying to test it out. But the Wemby blocks, no regrets there. He had 2. The juice wasn't probably worth the squeeze. So even if we did hit it, might not have been worth it in that one in hindsight as well. But as far as the other 3 goes, love the call out that we got on the live stream with SGA. Dante DiVincenzo was one I found on the live stream with you guys as well, once we saw what OG was able to do. And Jabari Smith was one we took late, almost as like a hedge of the Wemby bet, because Wemby in meant that we liked Jabari Smith under. So on the season, still have 20.9 units, but the Playa Props, we continue to stay strong. 28.3, made a half a unit almost on those last night. So just missed on that one side that we lost out on the total, rather, for that game in Houston, or with Houston. But that is all the time I have for you guys in this one. Continue to follow along. If you would, subscribe to that page. See you guys at 4:30 p.m. Eastern for that live stream. And until I do see you then, happy betting.